All right, so if we need to have this, we've already got that established. Our called meeting, we're going to be working through the details to help us with our screening committee, talk about how we want to get down to our finalists that we want to choose to interview and social distancing and what this our interview day is going to look like. So thanks everybody for joining us. And I was telling the board, Dr. May will be with us soon. He's with his last patient for the day. And here he comes. There he is. So perfect. We'll give him a second to get connected. Hey, Grover.
Hello.
Wonderful. Your timing's perfect.
Thank you.
All right. So the applications closed yesterday at 5 o'clock. Went up to the central office and met with Felicia. We have 12 applicants, 9 external, 3 internal. So that's really, really good. That's a couple of things right off the bat. One of the things, and I had polled our screening committee and asked them as much as they could to come to the central office and read the applications so we don't have them scattered all over town. Most everybody was agreeable to that. For the board, if you want to come up to the central office and read them, that's great. If you need those sent to you, I believe that Mr. Trent can send those in a secure, like a Dropbox or something for us to go through. I would just remind everybody that, you know, we remember that we're supposed to see those, and while they are, you know, the public can view them, we don't want to make copies, and we don't want to make sure that we're the ones that are making that information available. If people want to come up to central office and look, they can, but if they're in our possession, just, you know, remember why we have them. But you can let us know as often as much. I think I'm going to go to the central office and work, but if you want those in a Dropbox, just let us know. And but I think Felicia's got everything documented of when they arrived, all those sorts of things. So that's right off the bat. Working through our document on calling references, I wanted to start there. Can everybody help call references?
I can.
Okay.
Can I ask real quick, what are the hours at the central office right now?
Oh, that's a good point. Felicia, what are the office hours?
Okay, we are 9 to 3 the rest of this week, and we will be back on regular schedule, well, kind of a summer schedule, which will be June the 1st, and we'll be here from 8 to 3.
8 to 3? Okay.
In the summer.
So again, if you can, that's fine. If you need those sent to you so that you can work through them on your computer, that's fine. Just let us know.
I mean, I would like to have them just because I don't know that I can get there, you know, by 3. So, but somebody will have to tell me probably technology wise how they're coming. So.
Okay. All right. I'll talk with Mr. Trent, get a little bit more details about that, then we'll get that out to you and you know, make it real simple. One of the really good things, there's 5 of us, there's 7 people on the committee, so that equals 12. We have 12 applicants. One of the things I think is a good thing is having 2 people check references, not calling the same people, but kind of dividing them up a little bit. So if we did that, our calls are not, it's not going to be an overwhelming number. So if Phil and one of the screening committees, they were paired up, they would take or call on references for just 2 people. We'll put together a document of reference questions. If you want something specifically asked, you can let us know. Otherwise, we'll just put a document together of general safe questions that we need information on. We'll get a document to everybody for each of your persons that you're calling on, and you'll just work through it. And then I'm going to do mine on a computer and then just send them to Felicia, and then we'll put those in the applicant's packets. And then that way it's going to make it easier for us to work through everything. If we could, the sooner we got started on the references calls, the better. Because really, I mean, it's not going to take that long. And then maybe first of next week, we would be ready to have the applicants committee, their packets completely ready, all the stuff they've submitted, and then with our reference checks. And it's going to be really easy to work through that rubric document to kind of, look at how everybody's applications stack up. Yeah. Eddie, are you want to say something?
I'm just had somebody text me and ask me if this meeting was streaming.
Yeah, Joey, that's what Joey was doing.
Okay, okay. No, they were just, I guess they can't find it.
Yeah, Eddie, let them know that for some reason the YouTube is not streaming it out quite yet, but it will be on there. So regardless, even if we
Eddie, you want me to
post it once
text her? She sent one to me as well. You want me to text her really quick and tell her?
Who did you get one from?
Sharon?
I got one. Well, no, I got 2 or 3 different ones, people. So I'll just send a text and say it's just delayed. Is that essentially it?
So basically it's not working at the moment, but it will be on our site. Is that correct?
Like in a minute, or will it be like after this is over? Or
worst case scenario, Eddie, if this doesn't start streaming out live in just a minute, it's recording to the cloud, and we will take and we'll post it just as soon as it's over. So one way or another, the full meeting will be up shortly.
Okay. All right, I'm putting this as well.
And can I make a request about the references and interview questions?
Absolutely.
Would you ask Miss Owen or somebody to give us a list of, general topics when we develop those that we are not allowed to ask? Like, I have a general feel from my own, but my HR always gives that to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything unusual in education law. I don't think so. I think it's the same things about non-discriminatory, but just make sure that we all have been, if we're going to be checking references, that we've all been fully advised by our counsel about what to ask and not ask.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent cautionary thing there. So yes, I can do that.
Okay,
Ask her for some basically.
Just guidelines.
Yes, yes.
Just guidelines, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, with everything, before we send anything out, she looks over it. So when we've kind of gotten some feedback from her, we can put some together, send it to her. Once she gives it a thumbs up, then yeah.
Yeah, sometimes on reference checks, particularly, the follow-up questions are where you get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to ask everybody, assume the same questions to set the playing field level and make sure that we have the same information that we're returning. But the open-ended questions can sometimes lead you into a conversation where you may be tempted to ask about, pregnancy or something like that. It's in my field, but things like that, where you might ask about their kids or things that you can't really get into as far as asking, and they're not recorded. So it's one of those things where it'd be best if we, unlike the interview where it is recorded, be best to have, steer clear of things that had to do with protected categories, protected classes, military service, things like that, that should be on a resume, but not necessarily in a reference check.
So maybe the thing to do on that is when we get this ready, when we've divided up who's in pairs, who they're going to be calling on, we give them the references. We'll put a little disclaimer at the top that says these are the questions to ask. Please stay away from these areas because we can't ask those questions.
Yeah, right, because it's illegal to ask those questions.
Okay. All righty. So can everybody help?
Yep.
Yes.
Danny, Eddie, can you guys help?
Yeah, I said yes.
Okay. All right. So that's going to make it really easy. So thank you very much for that. So again, when you're finished working through each person, we'll send it to Felicia. We'll put information on there. So that will be great. All right. So for the screening committee, we have 7 people that are helping with that. Do I need to go over the names again, or do you guys remember who's going to help us with it?
Did a couple change the one that you?
Yeah. I sent out something, but I'll tell you. Let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. From the high school, Sean Witten. From T.A. Duggar, Justin White. Kip Anderson's expecting a grandchild, and so that's when the babies do. East Side is Julie Smith. Harold McCormick is Regina Cates, and West Side is Denise Davis. City manager Daniel Estes is going to represent the city, and then Tommy Tipton from Chick-fil-A is going to be our community leader. So that's our committee. Most of them, one of the things I need from you guys is I need to know, all of them said they were willing to work kind of independently, come up and work. So what we need from them, do you just want each person's, like they've gone through all 12 applicants and they've ranked them. So it could be like, Julie Smith, this is her, these are the folks that she would like to see her, who thinks she's the most qualified. We can do it all 12. We can do it internal. We can do it external. We could just do the externals. Or do you want the committee to meet and give us like their top 5, 6, whatever you're thinking externally? And then we can meet, we could do a follow-up called meeting to kind of take their recommendations. And then if we're happy with it, that's great. Or if there's somebody that we just think is fantastic and we want to interview, how do you guys want to do that? World's longest question.
I kind of think it would be good to get a kind of a recommendation to feel for the whole committee versus individuals. Okay. I don't know how everyone else feels, but you could be pretty diverse and get pretty scattered if you do it completely individually as opposed to as a group of individuals. Okay. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
How will they, so they'll come together and then they'll agree and give us a list, is what you're saying?
If that's what we want. It's up to us to decide what direction we want to, the directions we want to give them.
And when you say ranking, how are you going to do that? Is that going to be a number system?
Well, and that's the thing that we've been working on. Felicia is finalizing that, and we're going to give that to everybody. Basically, we've taken our policy, which states the criteria that the director has to have. And then we went through and kind of fleshed out what that means a little bit more. And there's a ranking 1 through 5. First of all, to make sure that they all meet the criteria, because if they don't meet the criteria, they're not qualified, for the position. But then 1 to 5, like if somebody, whatever the question is, maybe, they meet the minimum, but maybe somebody has just done an amazing amount, a body of work in that particular area. So they would get, a 5 instead of a 1. It could be a good example is like your education. So if you have a master's, which is the minimum, you would get a 1. If you had additional credentials, you would get a 2. If you've gone through the superintendent certification process, a 3. If you've been in a superintendent, you would get, a 5. However, so it could be something like that. It's based on that person's background, their body of work, just a way to kind of on a paper to kind of look at it objectively. And then there's a comment section underneath it where you could write a comment. Like you could say, well, this person hasn't been in this position very long, but their references were strong. I really like that they did such and such. And so that would be a thing where just kind of when you're going back and looking at everybody, you have a snapshot, a bit more of a drilled in look at their application and their resume.
Do you know if the live stream's working yet? My phone's blown up. I'm really concerned if it's not, that if we know it's going to here shortly, that maybe we wait until it's available. I don't know.
Yeah, what I can tell you right now is, Eddie, is we're recording the meeting. That's something has changed since 3 o'clock today. We did a lot of testing today to make sure everything was ready to go. YouTube, there's some update that's came down, and as far as the live link, we're not able to get to it right now. So, but we will have the full meeting up, because I'll take the cloud recording and post it, but me and Jason's working on the back end of it right now.
Well, one thing, as long as people can see it, that's all that matters, because if they're not watching it live, it's still, I mean, nobody's communicating with us. And I don't want us to wait. I mean, like, it could be 10 minutes, it could be hours. I don't know. I mean, people are still going to hear what we're saying, either now or, you know, in an hour. I mean, we're still being transparent. We're still, everybody's going to see everything we're talking about. You know, I'm answering Mr. Sanders from the Star right now too. What's everybody else think?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Are we have any items to vote on tonight?
We're just working through these things and talking through them. So we're kind of voting, you know, just deciding the specifics. Like right now, we're deciding what we want the committee to do and that sort of thing. So
More of
I
a
mean,
workshop, in other words.
yes, it is that. And one of the things is just like in a regular meeting, the people watching aren't allowed to participate. So as long as I feel, I mean, I hate that because I really like for people to be watching it as it happens, but sometimes technology is just, if YouTube is doing something and we can't use it at the moment. So, but I think as long as it's available as soon as possible, as soon as we finish the meeting and it's uploaded, then people will have access to it. And I know, I'm sorry, I don't run YouTube. I wish I did. But if everybody's okay, we can go on, because I know Grover's got some things to do, and I don't, you know, we've got a lot to work through. So is everybody okay with continuing?
Yes.
Eddie, Danny, you guys okay? Phil?
I'm fine.
I don't
As
know.
long as we're not
I
breaking
know-
the sunshine law.
Well, first of all, most school systems don't even do this. So most school systems just record, take notes and record it. We're one of the only school systems that actually do this. So, and with the new thing with Zoom, you know, and we're making it available just as quickly as we can.
Is there any question about the sunshine law? If so, we can check with Deborah real quick.
Yeah.
Text
Hey,
her.
Corey, I know you're Zoomed and I know you're here. What do you think? I know you're muted in, but what do you think?
The regulation allows for the board, the open meetings transparency that they're talking about is making sure it's available to the public. And so, but I will break here and call Deborah just to make sure, but I'm sure that that's the way it is. As long as it's recorded and provided, I think we're fine. But
Okay.
I'll make a phone call very quickly.
If you would
Thank you.
check with her, that'd make me feel better, because I agree. I don't want to get crossways on this.
Yeah. Well, you can check some emails or texts and tell people what's happening. Well, we can talk about something kind of vanilla that nobody wants to listen to us talk about. Do you guys want to have a called meeting on the 8th just to kind of shore up everything, make sure we're good to go before we do interviews? Is the 8th okay? I think, is that a Monday, Grover? You're muted.
On 2 meetings. Yes, that's okay. The 8th is fine.
Can anybody else do a quick call meeting on the 8th? Eddie can.
What time are you thinking?
Grover, what time would work?
I can do about any time. Just
Okay.
tell me when on the 8th.
What time works better for everybody else? I'm kind of good anytime as well.
I mean, after work for me, of course, about this time is best for me.
Okay, so about 6 o'clock.
That's
That'd be
Same
fine.
here. Same here. That would be good for me.
Okay. Eddie, does that work for you? Okay. All
Yes.
right. Thank you. All right, so if we need to have this, we've already got that established and we don't have to waste everybody's time while we check calendars because we're doing it now. So, all right.
So Rita,
Yeah.
is it your understanding, you said other schools don't do this.
Mhm.
I assume you mean live stream. You're
Yes.
just saying they record and do it later. So,
A lot of them don't. I mean, like they may be doing Zoom now, but
right,
normally we're one of the only school systems that actually.
live streams.
Yeah.
No, but, and so they don't have to record them if they have it in an open place where the public can come.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
as long as they have it recorded, I think, but I'm just curious if.
Yeah, and that's the best thing. If Deborah, I mean, like that's one of the things we depend on Miss Owen so much for is.
Yeah,
those
I'd like to ask her.
responses.
I know, I'd like to ask her and she knows, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking through if we have to, worst case, you just have to redo the meeting. So, and everything's null and void, but
Yeah.
the only thing we're like, there's not an agenda and there's not a voting item. I was sitting here trying to look at the Open Records Act and the Open Meeting Sunshine Law, and it doesn't look like you're required because the time for citizens to speak is only in the regular. We don't have that here. So this is workshop and a discussion, not an actual vote.
Yeah,
or
we're not
policy.
voting on anything. Everything was just discussion.
Mhm. So,
But we
Not-
don't want to,
yeah, it still needs to be in the open and visualized.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that's what she's probably going to say, but we'll see.
Okay.
This comes from, if you have 1 second, this comes from the executive order number 16, given by the governor. That particular order expired May 18th of 2020. However, we know that the governor has extended that through June 30th. Let me just read one paragraph from it. The paragraph says, if a governing body seeks to conduct electronic meetings in order, it must make reasonable efforts to ensure that the public may access the meeting live via electronic means. In the event the governing body cannot provide live access after making reasonable efforts, the governing body must make a clear audio or video recording of the meeting and make the recording available to the public as soon as practicable after the meeting, but no later than 2 business days after the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. G. Everybody good to continue?
I am.
I will try to send that out to all the board members. It has been extended.
Okay. Everybody good? Bill, Eddie, Danny?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I think we were talking about with the committee. Phil said he would like for them to give us as a corporate body their recommendations because remember, all internal people are automatically getting an interview. We're still going to call references because we have to treat everybody the same, but they automatically will get the interview. So they can, that's one of the things that we don't have to worry about, but we do want them to look at all the external candidates and tell us what they're thinking. So do you guys all want them to kind of get together and come with a consensus of their top candidates?
Now, that's just my thoughts, Rita. I don't know what everybody else wants to do. And it may be hard for all of them to get together at one location. I don't know. They may want to do it over the phone. Whatever's easiest for them and convenient for them.
Okay.
I would like to have it from the group instead of individual.
Okay. Well, actually, most everybody on the committee, they said they would do whatever, but most of them kind of wanted to work through the rubrics with the applicants individually and then kind of meet together. And they can either meet in person or they can do what we're doing. They can meet in Zoom and talk. Felicia is going to be facilitating everything, so she'll be there to kind of host the meeting and kind of keep them, working towards that. So if that's what we want, that's great. So then after they do that, that's going to happen all of next week where they have that opportunity. I'll ask that by Friday, they can give us that information. And then Monday when we meet, we'll have that, and then we can make our list of the folks that we want to invite to interview. Is that okay with everybody?
I'm okay with that.
Yep. Sounds good.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Eddie, does that work for you? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So today, got on a conversation with Miss Owen, and well, actually yesterday when I was at central office getting the final numbers, started talking about, we realized that several of the candidates are from different states. They're far away. I believe if memory serves me correct, we have 3 that are in the state of Tennessee, 4 on border states, and 2 kind of a little bit farther away. So with social distancing, with different states having different restrictions, CDC recommendations, our district on this 100-mile radius, kind of felt like we're going to have to do Zoom meetings. And if we're going to do Zoom meetings for some people, we really just need to do Zoom meetings for everybody. And that's the worst because, being in a room with people and feeding off of that energy and watching body language is such an important part. But to keep a level playing field, I think we need to, if we're going to have some people do Zoom meetings, we need to do all of them. And so I've been talking to Mr. Trent. I drove him nuts all day, figuring out how we can do that. One of the things is all of us can still meet at the central office and meet together so that we're not in our homes hoping our Wi-Fi's don't, do weird stuff. And then that would be a recorded session where we would interview the candidate, and they would be on a big screen so we could see them. We can work around the room so that we would be able to see them really well. We'd use our Chromebooks because that way that picks up audio super well. And that's a way that we can interview them. Somebody from the central office would host that Zoom meeting for us. So they would have the person who's getting ready to come in the waiting room, bring them in. We would interview them and then go on to the next one. So while that's not ideal, it is a way that we can be fair. Some people are just not going to be able to get here. I mean, like some states don't want people leaving. So, yeah.
Will that be public? Will the public be invited or just recorded?
That's the other thing. And initially, that was the idea. And then we started thinking, because 100 people can join a Zoom meeting. So automatically, candidate number 1 goes in cold. Potentially, everybody could Zoom in and watch what's happening, hear the questions, because we'll ask the same questions to everybody, listen to other answers, and it's not fair. I'd like to think nobody would do that, but, I'm not comfortable with that. So I called Miss Owen and talked to her, and what she and I kind of talked about was we would record them, and after we concluded the last interview of the day, we would upload it to our YouTube, and then everybody could watch every interview. Now, per our policy, it says that we have to make the candidates available to the community and to our faculty and staff. So Mr. Trent and I were talking, let's say our interview, we interview somebody at 9 o'clock and we end at 9:45. At 10 o'clock, they would go into a Zoom meeting that's open to the public, and anybody can come in and spend 30 minutes with that candidate, ask them questions. We probably use the chat feature, and they could ask them questions, interact with them, talk to them, and then they could actually email us their opinions of them, and we would have them pretty quickly. So it's not a perfect scenario, because obviously the best case is when they're in the room with us, but I felt like that was a way that we meet that policy, that part of the policy that says that we'll make them available. We're not taking up a whole lot of their time. Yeah, Eddie?
And again, I don't mean to be a thorn, but just in light of the importance of this decision, the circumstances that we're in, I mean, is there any consideration to slowing the process down to where maybe we could do something? And I know how much work you've done. I appreciate that. It has nothing to do with that, but just, I'm sitting here thinking we're getting ready to elect somebody to lead our system for however many years. And we may or may not see them in person before. Other people may not be able to react with them or interact with them before. And a lot of it, just to maybe get it in by this deadline, where maybe an interim or something like that, and giving us more time, we wouldn't have to be doing all that. I'm just saying, it is, in light of where we are, the importance of the decision is that anything anybody else is thinking about or anything like that. I'm just curious.
Well, I would tell you, I've done an interview or two, and I've done Zoom interviews. I do not like them. Like you said, Rita, you can't get a feel for the body language and stuff. Can we just wait and look and see who our finalists are before we make that decision and go from there? I mean, we may have people, the ones that the committee chooses may be the ones who are around and close enough to be here in person.
Well, even some of the closer ones, and Dr. G can talk to this, there's something about 100-mile radius that the district, what is that, Dr. G, that about the 100 miles that our district is observing?
Okay. Yeah, but I guess it would all depend on where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
When we're bringing people in to interview and interact with people, we don't know where they've been. So anytime that we have, let's just talk about employee travel right now. If they travel outside a 100-mile radius of the Tri-Cities, they're required to, report that. And that's just not Elizabethton City Schools. That's Ballard Health or wherever else you work, Eastman or major employers, maybe even SOFA. I don't know about Grover and how they're working that at SOFA, but so that, a candidate essentially right now may not be able to get on a plane and make it here for an in-person interview. And so that's really up to the board to decide what they think's best. But, for us, and, depending on where the candidates come from, that's just a consideration for the board.
Yeah. So, I think that I've grown more and more accustomed to Zoom, but one thing is, it does change the dynamic of the interview. It's harder to see certain things, but it's also better in other ways. I noticed that we're looking at each other's faces with the exception of Corey, Danny, and Joey, but when you have a visual, you can actually, you're paying attention, you're engaged, And so we've noticed that actual meetings have more engagement. People aren't playing on their phones, or, you know, they're right there in the camera. I think that if we do it, everybody needs to have their image shown, because, you know, it says a clear audio and video recording. So I think that's under the governor's order that you just read. I just thought of that we need to make sure that we see the candidate, see them well. But the second thing is, you know, we have no guarantee of what's coming in the fall. And what we're predicting currently, I'm hesitant to say, because from the health system, the predictions we've made have been in some places in hot spots, and in other places have not borne out to be that way. So in other words, you know, we see a New York-like setting in a highly population dense area. And so we predicted that, but we did not predict that in the rural areas we would have less effect. My fear is that it may hit the big areas and then transition to the rural areas in the fall. And we may actually have a bigger second wave. We just don't know. The health department has not released us fully. We're still screening people twice a day. I'm still wearing these masks that I've taken off for the meeting because nobody's in my office, you know, and probably look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from where it's been rubbing my nose all day. But the thing is, I don't know that the entire nation or that the Southeast region or wherever we're sending out the applications from is going to allow for everybody to have an equal shot at the job who wants it. And so I don't know that, like, we have a long time before school starts, but we have a short time before the school year really gets underway. And interim is fine, but in the past that knocks that person out of consideration. And I don't know that we want to do that. Because I think all of our interim people are good people that we want to really think about. And that's just my thoughts. But.
I kind of agree with Danny, moving forward with the process and then kind of gauge how we're going to do the interviewing process, and go from there. You know, we've got it scheduled for our 16th, January the 16th meeting. You know, we can always have a call meeting on maybe the 23rd, a week later, you know, if that gives us more time to get the interviews done or do something differently. But right now, we probably just need to kind of move forward with the process.
Well, one of the things I would just caution is that we have to keep things level. And so I wouldn't want somebody to say they weren't considered because they live far away. Because we're supposed to be looking at everybody kind of, and I'm sure that would never be the case, but you know, there's some things, I mean, like, we're just living in a whole new world, and we don't know how long this is going to happen. And we can sit and wait a long time, but we have got, the reason that I have really pushed to get somebody in place when the new school year starts is because there is no to do, or there's no way, I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but there is no list of how to do the superintendent's job coming up in the fall, because we've never had to wonder about, will we meet face to face? What about, are we going to do hybrid? You know, the superintendents are having to rewrite the books every single day. And it would be nice to have the person in place from the get-go to work with all the other area superintendents, because I know they're kind of working as a corporate body, to have that person making those decisions and leading them rather than coming in months later with somebody else having led everything and then you're behind, just because we, you know, didn't want to do Zoom meetings. And this isn't ideal, but it's where we are. And I'm not pushing to kind of rush anything. I don't know any of these people. I know our people, but I don't know any of these other people. But I want that whoever we hire, I would like for them to be here from the get-go as we navigate into this new fall, and for whatever it's going to look like. That's been my thought process, is to have them in place, you know.
I understand it. Like I said, I appreciate it. And I mean, obviously I prefer something other than Zoom. I don't know if it's a policy that an interim can't be the director, or if you can, you know, I think we probably have people in our system that may be able to be an interim that may not be interested. I don't know that. I just with the importance of it, again, the argument of not knowing can go on both sides of, you know, we want to hurry because we really don't know what the future is going to hold, or we can say, let's wait because we don't know what, you know, the future is going to hold.
Yeah.
I would much rather see somebody in person. I think it just, especially for, you know, it's a little bit different depending on what you're interviewing for. But again, that's just me. It seems fast, especially, I don't know. It's first, you know, I've interviewed people for jobs before. This first time I've done this, it just seems really quick for the circumstances. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Well, a couple of things. I remember when we did the superintendent search for Mr. Alexander, and of course he had already been, you know, with us for a year and a half. We had to wait until we finished up that lawsuit before we could move forward. And we probably spent a couple of months on it, but nothing happened. I mean, we weren't doing anything. So it was just kind of dragging everything out. We would spend weeks doing interview calls, and, you know, everybody did them in a couple of days. So it was just kind of like, I mean, you can drag it out for months, or you can do like we're doing and keeping everybody busy and moving forward, and we're still getting everything done. I mean, I've wore everybody out, but I don't feel like this has been much of a burden on the board. Felicia, Nicole, and Joey and I have worked a lot, but I've tried to make sure that you guys haven't had to do a lot. So the next few weeks, I'm asking a lot from you, but you know, you take a couple of days, you make the reference calls, so that's done. I mean, again, it can go forever. Something you talked about as far as an interim, our policy states that a person who wants to apply for the job cannot be the interim unless we suspend the policy, and then we have to make that, if we're going to allow that in the additional post, we have to say that an interim would be also applying for the job, and we didn't do that. So if you're wanting to name an interim, it can't be anybody that's applied. That's just something to, you know.
I didn't know what the policy was, but I guess my thought was, I don't know if anybody would be crazy enough to want to do that. You know, not applying, but that was my way of saying, if we needed to slow down and you had somebody who would be considered being the interim that has not applied or did not want to apply, that at least was an option. I don't think that's the way we're headed, but I just, again, it was just a thought.
One other thing that with moving in an interim is, especially if it's somebody within, then we would have to get somebody to replace them and somebody to replace them. And sometimes it gets to be complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we've had, but I know we've had interims almost every time the last several times, but I know times are different. I just wanted to know what other people thought.
Dr. G, did you want to say something?
The only thing I wanted to say was that I did get to speak with Ms. Owen. The order that I read to you, that language is still in effect. We will have to do within 2 days, 2 business days following the meeting. We have to have it posted. So I'm hoping we'll have it posted immediately after for everyone.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody good? So we're going to ask the committee to give us their list of their top picks, correct? Everybody's okay with that? I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we will meet on the 8th at 6 o'clock, take their recommendations, and then we will decide if we're happy with those. We'll choose the number we want to interview and go from there. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Also on the 8th, after we have narrowed down who we want to interview, we can take their names and draw their names out to get the order. And we can do that in front of everybody so that, you know, they're comfortable with the order. Danny, were you wanting to say something?
Nope. All good.
Okay. All right. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. So let me ask you guys something. We have a young lady who's our new liaison. Her name is Veronica, and she is very, very, very excited to be involved. And I was wondering if we were okay with inviting her to the central office to observe, and then give her a few minutes at the end of the interview to ask a question. As our student representative, she had asked if she could be involved, and when we thought we were meeting in person, she wanted to meet each person, and but if you guys are okay with letting her observe and then giving her a question at the end that she could ask, I think that would be really, I think it would tell our kids that we really listen to them, we value their presence there. And if you guys are okay with inviting her, we'd do the social distancing and she would only observe until the end. But if you guys are okay with that, I think it would be a really cool thing to have a student who's been elected to be there with us, if you guys are okay with that.
And at what point is that? Is that at each interview, or is that, okay?
Yeah.
So we may need to extend the time just to make sure we've got.
Well, I was thinking if we, if we concluded our interview at 45 minutes and then we let her have, 5 minutes or so just to ask a question. And then that gives us a couple of minutes to get up, stretch our legs, go to the bathroom, get some water, and then be ready for the next interview. And then that person would go into the community chat room and talk to them. So if y'all are okay with that, I haven't mentioned this to her. Actually, Miss Owen thought of that. She suggested, because we had the student liaison, that would be it would tell the kids that we really take that position serious and let them be a part of that process. Obviously, she's non-voting, but it would be nice for her to get to be there. So if y'all are okay with that.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Everybody good?
That's fine.
So for questions, one of the things I would like for you guys to do is to come up with 3 or 4 good questions that you want to ask. And if you don't care, you can send those to me. I'll put them together. I wanted you to send more than one in case we had duplicates, or a question was worded. Maybe somebody worded it one way that was kind of better. If you guys are okay with me doing that, if you would rather somebody else do that, that's fine. But I think it's a really good idea if each of us submit a couple of questions that we would, and we'll probably, limit those. Each one of us will have a question to ask.
Email and deadline. What's your deadline?
Let's say middle of next week.
So Wednesday at noon.
Mm-hmm. And also during the interview, we've, typically the chair asks the questions because they'll ask the question the same every one. And then what happens after the question's asked is up to each, candidate. So obviously after the question's asked, you can interact with them and ask, follow-ups based on what they say. But if you guys are okay, I'll take our questions. I'll ask them all the same. I won't add anything to them if you're okay with that. Or we can each take a turn, ask a question, whatever you want to do.
I would prefer to have some type of interaction with them myself.
Oh, you would. After the question would be asked, after the initial question, then you would ask any follow-up or anything. You're not going to be quiet.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no. It would be like, I would say, what's your favorite color? And then they would answer, and then Grover said, oh, well, why do you like that? So it's just asking the initial question, making sure if one person does that, that tends to make sure that every question is always asked the same for all folks. But no, I want everybody participating. But if you want to ask a question, like whatever's the question that we've decided on, we can do that. Whatever you guys, you need to tell me what you want. I've just tried to put some things in place to give us a framework, but this is where you guys need to tell me what you want to do.
If we end up using Zoom, I think that's definitely helpful because the follow-up questions are going to be important, but the actual asking it the way it works with Zoom is just easier for somebody to follow because you're directing the flow. Of course, we all be in the same room may be different if we're all in the same room, but you know, it doesn't matter to me. I think that sounds probably the least challengeable if somebody says their interview was different. It's one less thing to worry about.
One of the things that helps if one person is doing it is that you keep an eye on the time a little bit, because we want to be able to ask them all the questions. And sometimes, you know, obviously most people who apply for these jobs are talkers. And so you do have to kind of
I thought you were talking about me.
Not at all. Not at all. I've met every one of us. We're all talkers. Phil's the quietest, maybe Danny. But let me know, are you guys okay with that? Like,
Yes.
and I think it's a good idea to ask questions on different levels. So, you know, like come up with, you know, whatever's important to you, ask those kind of questions, and then we'll try to make sure that we touch on a lot of different subjects. Sorry, my dog is involved now. I'm not sure why. Apologize. Let me think. Okay, after the interview, this is really important. And so this is one of the things we're going to have to decide. So after the interview time, we're going to want to talk. So we have two choices. We can go into a work session, and in the work session, well, let me just back it up. After the last interview, we're going to take a short break because we'll be tired. And then that will give the folks from who are running our programs a chance to upload everything. And then we will have to go live with another meeting so that it's, you know, be it a work session or a call session. If we go in a work session, we can only deliberate. So we can just talk about, well, I like number 1, I like number 3, and we'll just do that. But we can't make any kind of a decision. If we go into a called meeting, we'll still deliberate, but we could narrow down. And one of the suggestions Miss Owen had for doing that would be that we would choose a number, and we could say, okay, take your top, let's say we interviewed 7 people. And so we would say, okay, everybody write down your top 4 people that you think would make the best candidates. We'd write those down, give those to Felicia, and she would read them off. So she would say, Mrs. Boer voted for 1, 5, 3, whatever. And then the top 3, we would go into our meeting knowing that it would be one of those 3 that we would be voting on for our next director of schools. That's some possibilities. So thoughts on that?
Are we going to have a called meeting to do that at some point if we don't do it that night?
That night, you're going to want to talk because you're going to have to kind of work through things. We can either work session just talk about it, or we could narrow it down. We don't have to do anything. We can come to the meeting Tuesday and just, you know, work through that process and make it a nomination. If there's a second, we vote and go it that way. Narrowing it down might make it over the few days while in between to give you more time to look over their application again and think about it.
If we have a called meeting, though, we can take action and avoid having a long drawn out, you know, forget who's what, you know, everything's fresh on your mind. You get the top ones down. I would rather just have a call meeting because you're not required to vote. You could vote to defer it. Mm-hmm. But if we do a called meeting, we've legally met our obligation to go ahead and have that. And given the fact that these people are also being interviewed elsewhere, I'd like to go ahead and get the process where we could do it if we wanted to. Okay. At least narrow down. I don't think we should vote for the person. No. I think we should narrow down to a smaller number than 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we know what we're dealing with, and then we come prepared to the next meeting with, you know, a smaller set of candidates. We're now able to kind of really deliberate on the 3 top or 4 top or 5 top, or depends on how many we interview, I guess. Yeah.
That was my next question is, how many are we going to interview from the beginning? We need to talk about that. How many are we going to interview that the selection committee sends us? You know, so we're not interviewing 12 people.
Yeah,
if we don't think we need to.
I love you guys, but I don't want to spend all day with you. So You know, you don't want to spend all day with me. Well, we're automatically, we know we're interviewing 3 because we're interviewing our 3 internal people. To be fair, I think we should at least at a minimum interview 3 externals, but if we want to do more, and that's what we can talk about Monday night after we've kind of looked at, you know, references. You guys have had a chance to look through their applications if you want to. We could kind of just say that's the number we want. We want to do it on the 8th. We've gone, you know, everybody's worked through it. We've looked through it. That's when we can make that like minimum of 3 externals, maximum 5. We could say something like that. That would no more than 8. So between 6 and 8 would seem like a reasonable number.
Well, hopefully that committee, there will be a gap that'll, where you know, and they'll be able to say, we need to cut it right here. There's a little bit of a gap, and that's a good place to say, let's do these.
Yeah. So we could just say that we will do a minimum of like, we'll say no more than 8. You guys want to say that? We don't want to interview more than 8 people? I mean,
I'm good with that.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. If that means, depending on looking at the resumes and the.
Yeah, we'll do a maximum of 8. And so if we have the 3 internals and if we have a minimum of 3 externals, that's 6. And at 45 minutes, that's a lot, but it's not horrible. If you guys are okay with something like that.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Good. Sounds good to me.
Okay. One of the things about the called meeting, that way Felicia can go ahead and put that on our website that we're going to have 2 called meetings, one on the 8th and then the one following the interviews on the 13th. So that gives us plenty of notice that that's what we're doing. We meet those deadlines and that way people know what we're doing. And then on the 16th, hopefully we can come to consensus. So. All right. On the day of the meeting, we'll talk about that later, but again, it has to be the first item. Before we can do anything else, we have to vote on that. So that'll be the very first thing we have to do. Just know when you see the board packet come in June, don't be surprised. That's just law. That's the first thing we have to do. So.
Can I interject one thing,
Yes.
or just to say, just a reminder that public notice was given the day after my resignation, the director search, and the board at that point decided that they were going to do a search and how it was going to move forward. So we will give more notice. Is there anything else, any other notice you think that we need to give to the public? We'll put it on our website. We've done it in meetings. I think everyone in Elizabethton knows that we're doing a director search. But if it's been on there, it will be on there. You know, it will be the first thing on the agenda. Is there any place else you think that we need to give more notice than what we have? Okay.
Ms. Owen, those were the things that she told us to do. She gave us the dates and deadlines we had to meet. And so we have more than exceeded that time frame.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody in the Northeast region that doesn't know what we're doing. So, but that's always a good thing. Let's see. Before we move on, anything else with this, or is everybody comfortable with where we are? Okay, so I'm going to work tomorrow. I will divide up the committee and us and make pairs. We'll give you who your person is going to be. We'll send you the references and who you're going to call. We'll give you the questions to ask. I'll work on all that tomorrow so we can get started on that with the committee. I'll give them some directions as well. But I feel like the numbers about, I don't feel like anybody's going to be overwhelmed with what we're going to have to do. So that's a good thing. I'd like to, first of all, I want to say thank you to Nicole and Felicia and Joey and everybody who has done so much behind the scene things. And Dr. G's been really helpful in helping us communicate with Miss Owen to make sure we're okay on everything. But Nicole closed the survey Friday afternoon. Of course, off all weekend. Monday was a holiday. The surveys are there at central office for you to pick up. One of the things I will say, this was a survey to gather information. We did add the blank slot, so we've got that. Of course, this is anonymous, so just know that you're going to get all sorts of things in the that little area. So as you're sharing and people are reading, just remember that you're going to get all sorts of things in there. So some people wrote, I'm sure will write thoughtful things. Some people may talk about people they don't like. So just know that probably will happen. But those are available for you, and I appreciate her doing all of that. But again, she closed it Friday afternoon, and I have worked her to pieces yesterday and today, but they're printed for you, so you can come up and get it. So there you go. Anything else?
I guess my question is, the first thing that would help me is to see the candidates and the resumes. And you're telling me I have two options: come to central office, or it would be Dropboxed or something.
Not Dropbox. I'll ask Joey.
How soon can that Dropbox be done? Because I think that's very important for us to see the candidates and their resumes.
Okay.
One thing I'll say, we could take and we have a way of sending secure files that we had to put in place this year with special ed files. So pretty much as quick as we can make photocopies of those tomorrow, we could get those sent out. We just need to know exactly what email to send them to.
Okay, because for us to make reference calls, it would be nice to have that resume in front of us to know a little something about the candidate when we're asking the reference about these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's essential.
Yeah, I think we need the resumes in front of us when we're making our calls.
Okay. And again, you're only going to be calling on 2 people, so it won't be overwhelming up front. So we'll give you all of them, but really study up on those 2 people, and then call your references and look at everybody else's. But I think that's going to make it manageable as far as the reference calls goes. But yeah, that's a good point, Phil. Thank you.
But I'll be calling that candidate, but someone else will be calling that same reference also. Is that correct?
Most everybody, we asked for a minimum of 5, but some gave more. So whoever your person is, if they gave 5, like one of you could call 3, one of you could call 2. You can call all of them if you want to.
Okay.
I'll give you that contact person for who you're calling with, and you guys can divide up however you want. So I'll share all that numbers and everything with you. Some people gave a bunch, so it just depends on when you're looking at them how you want to, who you would choose to call. But I would use your partner to help divide that workload.
And you're going to assign us a partner that's with the committee, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, guys, thanks so much. You've been great, and I appreciate everybody's input, and hopefully we can get this uploaded for people to watch. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll be seeing a whole lot of each other over the next couple of weeks. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.